Okay, Anita, good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Doing very well. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to our Building Your Wealth Bridge podcast. And I am very excited to have you on today, in part selfishly, because we've been looking for somebody like yourself over the last couple of years for our clients. And as our firm continues to work with more and more people at the upper end of the wealth spectrum, for the 5 million, $10 million, $25 million families, we've noticed that those families really value some of these more niche service offerings. And really what I've noticed that cohort really values outside of just, typical investment planning, tax planning, estate planning is kind of these lifestyle offerings. And in particular, one thing that we've been looking at really close to the last couple of years is just this idea of bill pay, being able to help our clients get their bills paid for them. And so we've had trouble kind of finding a good solution because doing something like that in-house, compliance-wise, is just extremely complex in our industry. So we've been looking for someone, that could be a potential resource to our clients, that could help them not only with something like bill pay, but some of the other administrative tasks that they are doing themselves currently. Because I know really what that cohort really values is both, saving time, finding something that's convenient for them. And then really when they work with the professionals, they're looking for this attention to detail and kind of white glove service. And I think, the firm that you have started and you're the owner and proprietor of really helps people tackle this area of their life that isn't being addressed by that many firms out there. So I thought maybe as a starting place, if you wouldn't mind, if maybe you could just give people a little bit of background on, your firm. And I know you've been around our industry even prior to starting your own firm. So I'm sure that gave you a good background on, the type of people that you work with, what they value, the things that they're important to them, all things of that nature. So maybe I'll just turn it over to you to start with that, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I think, so what we do is we are a virtual concierge company located in Canada, but we serve clients in Canada and the United States. Right now, we actually have a little bit more American clients than we have Canadian clients, so it's very interesting. But what we started out as was administrative work for entrepreneurs and business owners. But what we saw as we got more involved in their businesses was they needed more of personal support, kind of life support in terms of task and just taking care of their lives. And as time went by, I realized they didn't just need booking meetings and calls and what an administrative or executive assistant does. They need help with their homes. Like they may have multiple homes. They have cars that needs to be serviced, gardeners. And I started seeing a little bit of a shift. It's like, oh, okay, can you help me with this? Sure. And then I start seeing more and more delegation of, oh, could you help me book this person? Or I need this help. I need this done at my house. Can you help me book this? And all of a sudden we start taking this more and more on. And I thought, wow, this is more of a concierge service. And so we started to offer saying, hey, we actually also do this. Like if you need help with your lifestyle or life task, let us know. So we started to incorporate that, and that has been quite a big, I would say we do more personal assistance than we do the business administration. A lot of the time, business owners, they already have someone in-house in the office helping with day-to-day, but sometimes they don't want to mix the two. They want to keep business and life separate and not really share too much of what's going on in their personal life. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but that's where we come in. So for an example, right now we have a client who she's a very busy executive. She just bought a third or fourth home. She's renovating it. We are dealing with all the vendors while she's doing her business. We are organizing all the vendors, the painters, electricians, plumbers, everything to go there and get that organized to start the renovations. And that's where we come in to assist because she cannot do both. She doesn't have the time to do both.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just kind of sticking on that point. So we were just talking about this before the call in terms of, where your firm sits on the spectrum of, how people think about this issue. And I think, a couple different ways people have thought about this historically is maybe having like an executive assistant through their business, like a personal secretary that is like 24/7. They're on their business payroll, but maybe they help with some of their personal items. And then maybe at the other end of the spectrum, if they work with like a family office, right, where they're kind of rigid in terms of, if you work with our firm, here are the list of services that we provide. It's kind of either all or nothing. I think as you explained it to me, one thing that's nice about your firm being kind of a concierge firm, and you have this ability to kind of separate business and personal, is just you have a tremendous amount of flexibility in how you approach your service offering, it sounded like. So maybe could you just give me a little more context on that, of when you talk to clients about what they need? It sounds like it's not a set in stone, here's what we're going to do for you. You really get to know the families and see what they need first, and kind of
Yes.
wrap your services and kind of cost structure around what they need from you.
Yes. I would say no client is the same. Every client comes to us pretty much with the same pain point. This is what I need. Once we have the discussion, we realize, wow, there's so many different things. But they're also realizing, wow, you can do this? You can help with this? And even now, we have clients going, are you able to do this for me? Is that okay? I'm like, yes, absolutely, we can help with this. So it's about educating our clients about what we can do for them, because they might not know or may not feel, can I share this? Is it okay that I share this with you? And sometimes we are kind of like therapists too. We hear a lot
Yeah.
of stuff that's going on in their lives. I'm like, yes, we can help you. So that's why it's important when we have our calls, we learn about the client, what they need. And then we say, well, this is what we can do for you. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize that. I didn't realize you could help or do these things. So I think it's important that our discovery calls with our clients, our initial consults are, what is it that you're looking for? And most of the time, it's just a basic, oh, I just need a little bit help here and here. But once we explain, they're like, wow, you can do all those things for me? I'm like, yes, we can. So, and since we are working virtually and in different time zones, it's a really big area that we can cover. And since we are working as a team, we have different skills and that we are good at. So we can help each other to bring this to the client.
Okay, great. You mentioned a phrase in there that I wanted to hit on, the phrase pain points. So when you're sitting down with clients, I know you mentioned every client is different, but I know one thing when our clients listen to these podcasts, they're like, hey, I'm trying to determine if this is a good fit for somebody like me. Are there common trends in, like, a list of, I don't know, 3 to 5 different pain points that you see most often that, are like that people, once they start working with you, you're like, okay, these are all kind of trends of things that people need solved for them, but also along with that they really value once they start working with you? Do you have kind of a sense of what those pain points are consistently?
Yes, I think honestly, when I'm looking back and even in the recent calls that I've had, is time. Recently, we had actually a wife reach out to us to help her husband because she wanted to have him at home more on weekends. He was working on weekends. So we had a meeting, all of us, and our goal is to take so much of his plate that he can actually be at home with his family on weekends. And what it is, when you are an entrepreneur, when you're starting out, you're doing everything. And you get to a point where you don't need to do that anymore. That's when you start getting a team. And the clients that we got, like, when they're at that point where they're like, I'm doing everything and I have no time. So if a client is spending time on doing the admin stuff, administrative, and not actually building the companies, then that is the pain point. That's the time where you need to shift. However, that's also the time where clients will need to let go. And sometimes that can be a challenge to, okay, now I'm going to pass this on to a person to take this over for me. But the pain point is time. They get stuck in doing things that is not valuable for them to do to build their company. They're missing opportunities because they're sitting and they're trying to schedule calls and meetings and follow-ups, and that's where we come in.
Okay. Yeah, I know one thing, what was interesting to me in getting introduced to your firms, I came into it thinking of a very specific client type, which was really just, extremely wealthy retirees, maybe, that just say, hey, I've worked my whole life, I've exited my business, and now I'm just trying to, declutter everything and just enjoy my retirement. But I know you've even mentioned a couple of different other groups outside of that group about, corporate executives that are just
Yeah.
extremely, extremely busy, or small business owners that are, maybe, still in the busiest years of their lives building their business. And it's a question of like, is this the best use of my time handling some of these administrative tasks,
Yeah.
paying bills and, doing my own yard work, things like that. And if that's time that could be better spent building my business, maybe that's where I should be focusing my time. Do you find yourself, it's probably difficult, but putting that into context for people where you have a list of like, hey, if you find yourself not being able to see your family, or, not being able to, have any time on the weekends, are there little things that in talking with people, you're like, hey, if this sounds like you, maybe this is something to consider. Are there any other items like that that you think kind of show people that like, yeah, this is kind of telling you that maybe you need to kind of rebalance how you're spending your time?
Yeah, I think, when you get to a point when there are so many things that are not completed, and I think when you're in it, you may not see it because this is what you do, this is your life. You just keep going on this hamster wheel every day. But sometimes I find that it's actually either a spouse or a friend or a colleague or someone says, I think you need some help. And that's when they go, oh no, they say, no, I don't need help. And then, or they go, oh, maybe, but I'm not going to hire a full-time employee. But who are these people? You may think VAs, virtual assistant, well, they're over in Asia. I don't know if I want to work with someone so far away. So it's once we do have people that come in and like, I'm not sure I need this service, but explain it to me. And coming back to what you just mentioned about people who have retired, which is interesting because they have had probably a go-to executive assistant their whole careers, planning everything, where they need to be, where they need to go, all their presentations, whatever it may be. But once they retire, all of a sudden they don't have that support person anymore. And that can be, oh, wait a minute. Am I supposed to do all this now? How do I do all this now? How do I know where I need to be? And that's where we come in as well, is for more of the personal concierge of, well, we can still help with that side. You don't have to be a business owner anymore. You can be retired and still have busy lives that you need support with. So we do that as well. Support individuals who's retired and just need help getting organized because they're being used to being helped with being organized
Yeah.
with everything that they do.
Okay. Yeah. And those transition periods of people's lives are so critical because if they
Yeah.
don't plan for it in advance, if they have like an executive assistant through their business and they transition out, and, maybe that executive assistant has been with them for 30 years. So it's possible they're going to retire soon, right? So I
That's
think it
right.
speaks to, and maybe might be helpful just to give people a little sense of, like your team structure. I know you've got a couple of different team members, but having a firm that is solely
Yeah.
focused on this, that is also focused on longevity of servicing
Yes.
families. And, as
Yeah.
I continue to do this for years and years, we work now with multi-generational families where we work with sometimes the grandparents, the parents, and now the grandchildren, and
Yeah.
just, passing that along where the grandparents may say, hey, I've worked with Anita for some time now. I think this will be valuable for my, kids or grandkids that are going along the same track. So could you maybe give people a sense of that, like your firm, how many people you have working and how you approach? I know you mentioned, hey, you're based in Canada, but you work with a lot of U.S. families, how you navigate that part of it.
Yeah, I think I have a team. As on my website, there's the two of us, but we have support partners with us that take on clients as well and support as a team. We are across Canada right now. Our team is only in Canada, but we are looking to find someone in the States because we are seeing more of interest from the U.S. So how our team works is, you have a lead strategic partner that works directly with you. However, we are a team in sense if, let's say I was not available, then my teammates would be available to step in and help. So our business is always flowing. We're never really shut down. We're always around to support our clients that way. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but
Yeah, no, it does. And then just on working with people in the U.S., it sounds like, you've been doing this for some time now. There's no, I think some people think, well, doing this cross borders, there must be issues that have to be addressed or popped up, but it sounds like you've solved for that. So it's really hasn't been an issue in working with U.S. families, the fact that you're based in Canada.
Yeah, no, we have actually had no problems at all with working cross-border. It's interesting, I had a client from Virginia, and he actually had virtual assistants in Asia, and he reached out to me. He goes, I need your help because I need you to help. He was buying gifts for companies like swag, and he said, I just need you to handle all the billing and the ordering. I don't want my credit card to be over in Asia, so I want you to handle that. So financially, when it comes to handling finances or credit cards and billing for our American clients, it's not an issue. I do payroll for one of the companies in the U.S. and one of their clients is actually Canadian. They were talking about how do I pay cross-border, and I could step in and say, this is how you do it. This is very easy. I do it every day. They're like, oh, wow, look at that. So, it's fairly easy when it comes between Canada and the United States. It's not, we're close enough. It's the same rules when it comes to finances and banking, pretty much. So we've never had any clients question that. We do charge in Canadian dollars, though, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but even that hasn't, been an issue.
Never.
Okay. One thing I was thinking about in terms of when people engage with your firm. So a lot of these people, I think, have been doing all these items themselves. I guess it's kind of a two-part question. Number one is, do you find yourself pinpointing things that I'll call them, mistakes or hidden costs of when people are handling it themselves, of things that weren't being appropriately taken care of, that you're able to clean up as part of working with them? And I guess part two would be, I'm interested when people come to you, are there things where they're like, this is what I think is really going to be valuable and worth it to me, and then they're surprised later on in working with you of like, oh, this actually, I didn't even know you were going to do this for me, and this was, so much more useful to me than what I thought initially.
Yeah, I think the mistakes, I don't want to call them mistakes. I think what falls through the cracks is that they don't have the time to catch up on things. So a lot of things are being left. So once we get in there and get our hands on everything and we can start cleaning things up, they're realizing that, that most of the times there's a lot of contacts or follow-ups that are not done. They're struggling with, finding time and finding time to do life, really. That's what because they're stuck at their desk and they're doing their business. So, I want to call them, it's the time that I don't want to call them a mistake, but they are not using their time efficiently because they want to do everything themselves. And that's where we come in and the trust is built and then we take it over. And they actually see this ease of, oh, wow, I can actually just sit back and do what I do best because I got this team who's taking care of all the nitty-gritty stuff. So that's huge. And we have seen it a lot, that sigh of, oh wow. And a lot of times I hear actually, when I talk to clients or they introduce me, go, you need an Anita. You need an Anita. I hear that quite often because I come in and I just, I'm very assertive. I may not seem like it, but I'm assertive when I come in and I just start, we'll start organizing and kind of take control in a good way. But they don't have to guide me or guide us all the time because we already experienced, we know what they need. So that's how we support them that way.
Okay, great. You use the word trust, and I think that's a key word in this discussion, because engaging with a firm like yours, similar to a firm like ours, takes a tremendous amount of trust, particularly on something like paying their bills, right? Getting access to their bank accounts. I was fortunate that my father was doing this around for 40 years before I jumped in and started working with clients. So I was fortunate in that a lot of that trust with my family was already built. But how do you navigate that with clients, particularly at the beginning? Around building trust. Obviously, your firm's been in operation for a number of years now. So, you've got a good track record, but just kind of navigating, what do you talk to people about of, hey, I would get that this is a nerve-wracking experience and that you're handing over a lot of authority to me, but here's why, maybe you shouldn't be concerned, or here's how I can ease your concerns by telling you about how we operate.
Yeah, and it is so true. Trust is so important, and that's one of our core values. And I think it's also the reason why we've had clients who stay with us since we started. It's, they're part of our, tapestry. Now we're part of their tapestry, and we're just so involved. I always say when I have my call is, I know it can be nerve-wracking to start passing things over and delegating, but we start slow. I don't say from the get-go, get us access to everything that we need. Let's start let's start slow. Let's start with the top 3 pain points that you have, whatever that may be. Let's work through those. They may not be the biggest pain points, but they're pain points that we can work on. They'll get to see how we work, and they're like, oh, okay. And then we start adding more and more as we go. We have access to financials, banking information, credit card information, net worth information. But we didn't get that the first day.
Sure.
It had taken a couple of years, but they trust us. And, we have clients that literally trust us just ask Anita, just ask Shauna. That's what they'll say to their clients or to whoever they are. Just connect with Anita, connect with Shauna. They'll figure it out. Nothing more needs to be said. We know them well enough. We know that what they like, we know what they don't like, and we just take it from there. So it is built over time. It's certainly not in the first month. It does take a little bit of time, and that's totally fine. Trust has to be earned both ways. So.
Absolutely. Okay. I appreciate you explaining that. One thing I was thinking about, I didn't think about it initially, and I think it's probably one of the most underrated benefits of using a service like yours is dealing with something I'll call the decision fatigue, when people are, having to handle administrative tasks,
Yes.
or even as their plan needs to adapt. Example I know we were talking about was something like cybersecurity, right? About just password management, on which vendor should I use?
Yeah.
Or if you're helping people with like lifestyle events, I don't know, company Christmas party or something like that, of, hey, we got to get we got to get the food, we got to get decorations, I don't know who to use. And just the idea of going back and forth between 3 different vendors for every decision and having to think about it, communicate that with your spouse, can be a lot, and it can wear on you over time.
Yes.
Is that something that your firm helps people handle, where you could say, hey, we know we need to address, this is the task you're trying to complete, but there's options out there? Do you help them whittle down those options, talk to some of those vendors in the background for them? What does that research part of it look like for families?
Oh, yeah. So we do a lot of event planning, corporate planning, but also, personal events, things like that. Currently, we have a client who is doing a retreat in Miami, and we have to, everything is up in the air. And I can tell that the client's like, I don't want to make a decision. I need you to figure this out for me. So we need quotes for yachts. We need quotes for hotels and Airbnbs and private chefs. So we put it all together. But initially, when we start out going, okay, now we have this project, we ask all the right questions. This is the projected budget for each item. And this is what we need for each of these tasks or projects. We will take that, and then we're going to put it all together for the client to say, okay, here are the options. Which ones looks best to you? And then they will pick, and then we can go from there, and we can actually just pull it together. So it's not like we have to go back and forth. What do you think? What do you think? We start with the call going, this is what we need. And then we come back with the answers, and then they can decide. So it's not like, because there are a lot of emails when you connect with vendors. I mean, we will probably do 25 emails trying to get to an answer. They don't need to do that. We do that for them. And then we provide them with the results at the end.
Okay.
So it does take a lot of time, away from them, that they don't need to sit and make those decisions, because I get it. You're right. Decision fatigue. It's exhausting sometimes with all the decisions that you have to make, and some you don't really need to. You can delegate that, and that's where we come in.
Great. Great. So you mentioned, hey, some of these projects, and it seems like it's project to project. Some of them might take a lot of time to research all these items, and it brings me to cost. And I don't like to focus too much on cost, but it's really important, I think, in this area because I think there's maybe a misconception, I'll call it. Our process here, the name of our podcast is Building Your Wealth Bridge, and part of our process is all these items that you need to address throughout your life. Something like this, I would almost call it beyond the bridge because it's something that may not pertain to every family, right? These are
Right.
specific types of clients that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Wealthy multi-gen families, corporate execs, people who are running their own small business. But in terms of cost, how does your firm approach it? I think we had a good conversation when we first talked around. You were approaching it, I think, one way, maybe it was hourly, and then you maybe ended up changing it, if I remember correctly,
That's,
just based on
yeah.
feedback you were getting from the families you work with. So could you maybe go into that just to give people a sense of what the cost is for a service like this and why you approach it the way you do?
Yeah. So, and it's a really good point because we started out initially, we were doing hourly work for our clients. And as time went by, I realized they were not concerned about of hours used. They were focused on what is being completed. So what we did to ease everybody's mind was we created a monthly membership, or you can do a 3 month membership as well. And it's a monthly price. And after each call that we have and we learn about the client, we'll say, okay, this is the quote for monthly service for what you need. Everyone is a little bit different. You have your
Mhm.
corporate people, and then you have your people who want the personal assistant to organize their lives. Lots of bookings, flights, and vacations, and that takes a lot of time. So that price is a little bit different than everyday admin work when you're doing emails. So we started to do that in terms of just monthly memberships. This is what you have, and I can tell clients just like, oh, I don't need to sit and think about how many hours am I using every month, because that's like an employee as well. You just get the task done. You don't pay them by the hour in that sense. You pay
Mhm.
monthly, right? So we're doing the same thing, and it's been a huge hit because nobody is questioning every month, is my invoice going up, or what is it every
Right.
month? It's the same. So we've been doing that, but we pretty much, to be fair, after our initial consult, then we will share the quote of what that would be for monthly service. And the reason why we do that is, even recently I made a I made a mistake. I had a call with a client. I said, oh yeah, this is fine. And then 2 days later, he added on a project. And I was like, oh my goodness. It was a big project, but I felt like I couldn't really step out of it. And so I included it in the quote. It's fine, but it was completely out of scope. But I thought, you know what? That's okay. So that's why it's important to really go into these discovery calls. What is it that you need? And then we go from there.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think it's part of why I think your firm is similar to ours. I describe it as like sophisticated but boutique in that
Yes.
there's flexibility there. Like I think a lot of wealthy families think that everyone would approach it that way because of like the high level of service they're getting. But I know there's a lot of family offices that just say, we work with, 100 families with $100 million or more. This is the price, just take it or take it walking, and not
Yes.
willing to have a discussion because they don't think they have the time for it. So to really personalize it for these
Yes.
families based on what they need, I think really
Absolutely.
hits a sweet spot for, and I know you work with some big families, but a lot of people between, I don't know, 5 million and 50 million that are like, listen, I have a lot of net worth. I'm willing to pay for something like this, but I want to understand it. And it's got to be appropriate because I don't have so
Oh
much
yeah.
money that I could just afford to be just throwing it away on something that, I don't fully understand. So I think it hits a good middle ground there.
I,
Um, oh, go ahead.
No, no, I said, I know, I think you're right, because as I mentioned earlier, no client is the same. Every client has a different need. There's a base, but we start from there, and then that's when we make the quotes. And it's very flexible too. It's like you don't, you can do month to month membership, or you can sign up for 3 months. And maybe you only need a month's service to help with maybe some planning or something like that. So it's very flexible, and we cater to each of our clients' needs.
Yeah. Okay. Um, One thing I was thinking about, just thinking of these different client groups, and how the world's changed, is just technology. And I think this is becoming less and less of an issue, but I think there's still a lot of families that are, people that are in their 60s or 70s or 80s that are still having a lot of these administrative tasks done manually, or just getting paper statements in the mail. I'm curious, with being the age that you're at and your firm, just based on looking at your website, very modern. How do you approach that and kind of integrating and updating, people's needs, and making sure everything's running smoothly from like a technological standpoint, getting, payments set up electronically and making sure everything is moving seamlessly, without having to deal with maybe, physical forms that are coming in the mail, and that's where things slip through the cracks. So how does your firm approach, the tech side of it nowadays?
Yeah, I think, again, being virtual, sometimes people like the younger people are like, oh, that's fine, this is life now. But we do have people who's like, oh, well, how does it really work? One is, I can only see you in Zoom, and it's totally fine. And I think it's important, meeting face to face. Once they see us face to face, it's typically, they feel good about it. They get to see who we are.
Mm.
Technology for the more of the elder generation, if I can say that, is, you have to get them out of that mindset of mail. Nobody's
Mhm.
really doing mail anymore. And we actually have one client a couple of clients that's doing checks. And I'm like, do people really know how to write checks anymore? Because it's not up here in Canada, it's not a thing. Nobody does checks anymore. People feel checks are, they get nervous about checks. But I've
Mhm.
noticed our American clients, they use checks still. And which I find very interesting, but it's neat to see the differences. But to be set up technically with all of your bills, it is so much easier. And for us, it's easier because we can step into all the different accounts and get it paid up and settled so nothing falls through, because even mail is unpredictable now, right? So it gets lost. And I mean, even me, I don't even want to open an envelope anymore. Like, it will sit on my desk forever before I open it. So, but it's easy. If it comes to me, I can click and I can pay my bills that way. And we can help clients with that, but it's getting them out of what they're used to. And it can
Exactly.
be scary for them.
Yeah. And I think part of it is skating to where the puck is going in terms of how the world is changing. Because I'm apprehensive. People don't like change, and not without good reason. But just being maybe a little more technologically savvy than someone in their 60s or 70s and 80s, it can seem almost condescending coming from somebody like me to say, hey, you got to go electronic with everything. But it's almost becoming a necessity. We had
Yeah.
another podcast, my father was a good example. We were talking about cybersecurity, and just he was in a parking garage where as he was going in and out, you had to use a QR code. There was no other way to do it. And so for people that
Yep.
just say, no, I'm a cash person, I pay for things in cash,
Yep.
similar to, like you said, with checks, there are companies that are somehow getting away with just saying, we don't do business that way anymore. Or,
Yeah.
we don't want things, being paid via mail. We want it all online. So I think that just seems like that's where the world is progressing. So just kind of tackling that now, I think it's helpful to the client. I think it's helpful to you, makes you be able to do a better
Yep.
job. And it's just helpful for the family, even after they pass, to make sure things keep running seamlessly when they're gone and
Yeah.
things don't get lost in the mail. So
Well,
thanks for, oh, go ahead.
no, that's exactly the thing, is getting all this set up with all the different accounts that it can be accessible by someone else. Whereas with, again, receiving a bill in the mail, you probably have to pay by a check. Well, nobody can write a check other than you,
Mhm.
right? But we can pay your bills with your credit card online in your account, electrical bill or whatever it may be. We can pay that for you and it's running smoothly. We can set up auto pay, so you don't even have to think about it. So it's a lot of time that we can get back for the client if we do it that way, that they don't have to worry about
Perfect. I appreciate that's a great example. One thing I thought would be good to maybe wrap on, and it's something that we talk about in a lot of our podcasts, but something that we're really big on is just being proactive with clients, other professionals. Just the other day, I was meeting with a client and her accountant, just to, as a second set of ears when they were discussing her tax plan. I think I talked about early on, there's an importance of a service like this, keeping it, church and state, because McCabe's handling the investments. We can't be handling the bill pay for clients, which is why it's a great service like yours exists. But how does your firm approach that? Obviously, you do what you do day in and day out, but just, if a client says, I've got this going on with my taxes, my attorney or my financial advisor, is your firm flexible and kind of, meeting with, talking to, listening to clients, other professionals, and kind of coordinating with them. Because I think the coordination is really key at the level of wealth that we're talking about. That's really something people value.
Oh, absolutely. We do a lot of that. We are kind of the dots between all these people. We are
Mhm.
we are the want to call the hub between, financial advisors, or it could be your lawyers and all of that stuff. It funnels through to us, and then we take it from there. So it's really important for us to have a really good relationship with the other people in our clients' life, like yourself, to be connected with and understand what you do, what is your role, what is my role, and how do we work together. So we do that a lot when we come in the middle and get organized, especially for tax season as well. We gather all the information that needs to happen, and we can send that off to the accountant. If anything is missing, we help support that as well. So kind of like the go-to person as well between all the different companies that the client may have as well, like yourself.
Perfect. Perfect. Great. Well, that covers everything I wanted to know. Maybe I'll throw it over to you. Anything we didn't hit, or any closing comments, things that you think people might want to know, our clients, prospective clients might want to know about you or your firm, or kind of this area that you specialize in.
That's a really, yeah, we hit a lot of things that I think are very, very important. I think for the most part is people don't know we exist, and I mentioned to you earlier, is like we are in the in between, in terms of, are we a virtual assistant, are we an executive assistant, are we administrative assistant, are you a concierge, what is it? And I think we're coming into what we are is like we're more of a personal office to somebody, because we
Hmm.
are a team. We do a lot of support. We're not just an executive assistant, we are a personal assistant. We also help with travel. We are event planners, and we do all of this. And I think when you and I connected, and you said to me, I couldn't find a service like you. And it made me think, I'm like, but we're right here. And I was
Hmm.
thinking, what is it that we are not doing to put ourselves out there? And I realized we are in the between. Nobody knows what to look for. And so we are a service, and we are in Canada right now, and we are hoping to expand one day. Um, but we are there to support clients, but also like companies like yourself that are looking for some help for their clients. And it's custom support for what you need. So
Yeah, and I think as time goes on, this is just a guess and I'm biased, uh, that will be a growing segment of clients that enjoy people that are in that in between. Because I think right now it's kind of all or nothing. It's like
yeah,
the family office that does everything in-house. They've got their own attorneys, their own accountants, their own advisors, their own, administrative services. And it's like, perfect world if they are absolutely excellent at all those things. I think that
yeah,
is, the best way things could be set up. I think most of the time it's very unlikely that they are just the absolute best at all of those different areas at the same
right.
time. And I think a lot of times, reason why I think the segment's going to grow. And then, as I said, it's all or nothing. Then there's people who are just like, myself, they're like, I just handle your investments, and I can't really help you with that administrative stuff. You're gonna have to figure it out yourself. But I think
Yeah,
there's this growing segment of people that are gonna like to be able to use someone like yourself, me, accountant, attorney, because they collect these different professionals at different points of their life. So
that's
right
right.
now, I think a lot of people, when they get near retirement, they're like, well, I've worked with this attorney, accountant, an advisor. None of them talk amongst each other. And somebody like Anita, it's all kind of all over the place. And now I'm just going to fire all of them. Maybe they are like, I really like my attorney, so I'm going to keep him, but I have to fire him because I'm going to this family office where they do everything in-house. I
Yeah,
think it's great when your professionals are all aware of each other. You
yeah,
can work with them and pick them up throughout different points of your life. And then you build this team that's really just custom to you. So
that's
you
right.
don't have to work with a single firm and rely on just using everybody that's in-house. You can use all
Yeah,
these different parties. So at first glance, you might think, well, it's scattered, but not if they're coordinating. So then it's like I have that family office feel without
yeah,
having to, have one individual or one team involved in every aspect of my life,
that's right.
right? And
That's
so I
exactly
think like that's what would be great about it. That's why I'm excited about, finding someone like yourself, is this integration of like, we've handled a lot of, the financial side of people's lives, but not the personal. And I don't think they want us involved in every personal aspect of their lives. It's great to have you to be able to step in and say, I'm going to handle the personal, George is handling the financial, and we're going to talk with each other. So it's going to be seamless for the client.
And I think by saying all of that, and I totally agree with you, and it made me realize, like, if you have been working with your lawyers or whoever they are for so long, you can still work with them. You're just introducing another company into it to help organize everybody. Again, where you don't have to go to a family office and they handle everything. You can keep everybody and continue, but you now have to support to help organize everybody and staying connected. And I think that's so important. And that is where the customization come in, the personal support of what is it that this client needs.
Perfect. Okay, great. I think we can wrap on that. Anita, I really appreciate your time today, and excited to talk with you more in the future. And for any of our clients that have questions or want to get connected with Anita, feel free to give myself a call, and we'd be happy to kind of circle up with all of us and have a conversation about the next steps on moving forward with something like this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No problem.